My name is Alex. I'm 28, and this is how it started. The buzz of my phone rattled the kitchen table under a flickering bulb. Steam rose from a chipped mug, bitter coffee filling the air. I reached for the screen, fingertips damp against the cold glass. One message glowed bright, slicing through the room like a blade. You're off the wedding list. That was the whole line. The fridge groaned behind me, drowning the rush in my ears. I blinked hard, thinking it was a mistake, maybe a joke. But her name was there, Emma, my sister, solid, undeniable. The letters burned blue against my skin, final and merciless. I stood too fast, chair legs screeching against the wooden floor. The kitchen smelled of old toast, sharp and stale. My thumb hovered over the screen, trying to find words. I typed, erased, typed again, the keys clacking in the quiet. Finally, I sent one word back, a question bleeding. Why? The three dots appeared, hung there, then vanished into nothing. Silence pressed heavy, broken only by the creak of the ceiling fan. The mug's heat bit into my palm until I set it down. Outside, a car alarm wailed and cut short in the street. Inside, the message pulsed like a wound, daring me to breathe. The phone felt heavier the longer I held it, like a stone. Her wedding was weeks away, my name inked on every plan. Now I was erased, no warning, no chance to fight. My chest tightened, the room closing in with every second. I stared at the glowing screen and thought, what did I just lose? I snatched my keys from the ceramic bowl and stood up. Cold air leaked from the door seam and stung my skin. The hallway light buzzed like a wasp trapped in glass. My phone lay face down on the table, still warm. I locked the door behind me and chose confrontation now. The stairwell smelled of dust and old paint and rust. My shoes slapped concrete steps and echoed like quick knocks. A red exit sign bled light over the metal railing. I gripped the rail until my palm hurt and slipped. I needed her voice, not another line of text. The car door was cold and rough under my fingers. Streetlights washed the windshield in pale streaks of gold. The engine coughed once and settled into a tired hum. My phone sat on the passenger seat, like a witness. I turned the wheel hard and aimed for her building. Tires hissed on wet asphalt and threw up faint spray. Traffic murmured low and steady like distant thunder rolling. The air vents breathed out plastic heat and road grit. A crumpled receipt scratched my thumb on the gear shift. I rehearsed questions aloud and heard my own doubt. I parked by a leaning parking meter and killed the engine. Rain kissed the hood and drummed a soft, steady pattern. The chrome handle of the meter felt slick and cold. Headlights slid across the sidewalk like blades of light. I breathed once and started walking, already bracing for impact. Her lobby smelled like lemon cleaner and someone's spicy takeout. A cracked mirror over the mailboxes threw back a warped face. I pressed the elevator button, and it clicked with a spark. The old cage rattled down like bones in a tin. I stepped inside and watched the floor numbers hesitate. 4th floor. The doors jerked open with a throatful of dust. The hallway carpet prickled my ankles through wet cuffs. A fluorescent tube flickered and hummed like a bad secret. I found her brass numbers and touched each one slowly. Knuckles ready, heart loud, I raised my hand to knock. The first knock sounded thin against the painted wood. The peephole went dark and then bright with motion. I smelled vanilla perfume drifting under the door's edge. A folded flyer lay on the doormat like a flag. The chain scraped behind the door and stopped me cold. Open the door, I said. Not now, she said. I rested my forehead on the cool frame and waited. The hallway fan whirred and stirred warm, stale air. Her breath whispered near the crack and then pulled back. I need to see you, I said. It's not a good time, she said. I touched the metal hinge and felt dust on my fingertips. Light from the ceiling pooled across my shoes and spread. A neighbor coughed behind a wall, our moment exposed. The chain slid, and the door opened a palm's width. Her eye appeared in the gap, bright and wet. The edge of a blue robe brushed the threshold softly. Her silver ring flashed once in the thin yellow light. Say it to my face, I said, pushing air. I cannot handle this, she said. What changed? I said. From inside came the clink of a glass on stone. A shadow moved across the hallway carpet and paused. She bent closer and lowered her voice like contraband. "People think you bring trouble," she said. "Whose words are those?" I said. The chain trembled and tapped the wood like a metronome. The smell of brewed tea slipped out around the hinge. A thin envelope rested on the entry table behind her. "His words," she said. "Liam's," I said. A small gasp came from deeper in the apartment. Her shoulders tightened and lifted under the robe seam. She slid the door a fraction wider and watched the hallway. "Are you alone in there?" I said. "Yes," she said. But the air carried a whisper cologne and starch. A black dress shoe peeked behind the coat rack and stilled. "Please be honest," I said, palm flat on the frame. "I am trying," she said. "Tell me why specifically." I said. The ceiling light flicked and buzzed like an angry wire. On the wall, a wedding invite glowed in a plastic sleeve. She glanced at it and swallowed, throat tight with heat. "He wants calm faces only," she said. "I could be calm," I said. The hallway heater rattled once and breathed dusty warmth. I touched the edge of the invite and felt smooth plastic. "Calm is not the only thing," she said, eyes shifting. "What else then?" I said. "History," she said. A cabinet door clicked inside and then went still. Her bracelet scraped the chain and sang a small note. "This is about me, not about your guest list." "You do not understand the pressure," she said. "Explain it," I said. The door swung until the chain stretched and quivered. The scent of lemon cleaner mixed with her vanilla perfume. A stack of placed cards sat on the entry table like teeth. "He thinks you will stir things," she said. "I show up and sit quiet," I said. Footsteps thumped overhead, and dust floated in the light. I pinched a placed card between two fingers and waited. She took it back fast and tucked it under the envelope. "I need you to trust me," she said. "Trust works both ways," I said. The metal edge of the lock bit into my knuckle. A hallway draft lifted the flyer on the doormat slightly. She flinched as if the draft were a shout for me. "Please go home tonight," she said. "I am 2 doors away," I said. The elevator bell dinged distant and promising escape. I watched her fingers grip the chain like it could break. Someone inside took a slow breath and then held it. "You promised to behave before," she said. "I never broke anything," I said. Her robe sleeve brushed the door and left a lint thread. The light across her cheek sharpened into a hard line. She blinked slow, then eyed the hallway camera. "Do not make a scene," she said. "I am speaking softly," I said. The radiator popped and sent a warm metallic scent. A single slipper sat crooked on the entry mat inside. She nudged it straight with her toe and avoided my eyes. "Promise you will not come to rehearsal," she said. "Where's rehearsal?" I said. She tilted her head and glanced deeper into the room. A red folder peeked from a canvas tote by the chair. Her lips pressed thin until the color drained to white. "Just promise," she said. "I cannot promise blind," I said. The hallway vent sighed and pushed warm air over us. My thumb traced a groove in the wood near the lock. Her gaze sharpened like glass, then flicked away fast. "Please stop asking," she said. "Then open the door," I said. The chain rattled again and settled into a dull ring. A ceramic bowl on the table held keys that glinted. She stared at that bowl, then back at my face. "This is not safe," she said. "For who?" I said. A low hum rose from the refrigerator inside the kitchen. On the counter, a knife rested on a cutting board. She glanced toward it and tugged the robe tighter. "I am tired of fighting," she said. "Then choose me," I said. The fluorescent light stuttered and threw shadows and bars. A framed photo near the door flashed and went dark. Her eyes hit the photo and softened, only for a heartbeat. "You should go," she said. "I will not leave without dignity," I said. Footsteps passed at the far end and then faded. I placed my wallet on the doormat and stood still. Her breath hitched, then smoothed like a practice line. "Take that back," she said. "Make me," I said. The brass numbers on the door warmed under my hand. A faint radio played inside with static and whispers. She pressed her temple to the wood and closed her eyes. "I am asking kindly," she said. I am answering honestly, I said. The elevator cables groaned and made the wall tremble. I picked up the wallet and slid a card free. I held the card to the gap and waited for courage. Call me when you are ready, I said. I cannot promise, she said. The card edge scraped the wood and left a faint line. The hallway smelled like damp wool and old cigarettes. She looked at the line and breathed like it hurt. Good night, she said. Good night, I said. The door eased shut until the chain went slack. The peephole darkened and swallowed her last glint of light. I stood with the card in my fist and a new question. I walked back toward the elevator with slow, careful steps. The carpet's rough weave scratched my ankle as I moved. A streak of neon from outside sliced under the door. Behind me, the lock clicked twice like a verdict delivered. I pressed the down button and chose not to accept it. The car smelled of rain and warm fabric and rubber. I set the card on the dashboard and watched it tremble. A passing bus roared by and shook the side mirror. Streetlight glare washed the glass and erased the interior. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles blanched white. My phone vibrated once on the passenger seat and stopped. A new message banner glowed and faded before I touched it. The screen left a blue smear on my thumb in the dark. Outside, water pooled around the parking meter and gleamed. I lifted the phone and braced for whatever came next. The suitcase lay open on the bed like a waiting mouth. The zipper teeth glinted under the harsh white ceiling light. Shirts piled at my elbow, fabric rough and smelling of detergent. I stuffed them in fast, not caring if they wrinkled. Each shove felt like punishment, but for who? I didn't know. The hum of the laptop filled the room like a warning. Its screen glowed pale blue across the messy desk. I tapped the trackpad and airline logos popped and rose. The clock ticked on the wall, loud and sharp. I scrolled until my eyes blurred, searching for escape. I found a flight and clicked without hesitating. The keyboard clacked in the still air like brittle bones. Salt from an old candle drifted faintly on the desk. The confirmation code appeared, numbers burning into my eyes. I copied them onto a notepad, hand shaking hard. I dropped socks and jeans into the suitcase, fabric scratching. The drawer handle rattled as I yanked it too hard. A flashlight rolled out and thudded on the wooden floor. The sound echoed like a hollow drum in the silence. I picked it up, then left it on the bed. The passport was cold and stiff in my hand. Its navy cover gleamed under the lamp like wet stone. I set it carefully on top of the shirts. The air smelled faintly of iron, like the radiator's breath. I pressed the passport flat, feeling its solid promise. I poured water into a glass, and it sloshed high. The tap squealed and spat rust before it ran clear. I gulped until my throat burned with the cold. The glass clinked against the sink edge, sharp and final. The silence after rang louder than any argument. My phone buzzed again on the desk, screen flashing. The vibration ticked against the wood like a trap beetle. I stared but didn't move, hand frozen at my side. The light washed the corner of the room in blue. I let it buzz out, heart hammering, too afraid to look. The suitcase was half full, but already felt heavy. I yanked the zipper closed, and it rasped like tearing fabric. The metal teeth locked together in a perfect seam. I rested my hand on the handle, skin damp. The weight pressed back like it knew the choice. The night outside pressed against the window in black waves. Street lamps flickered orange, spilling weak light across the curtains. I leaned on the sill, glass cool against my forehead. Cars hissed over wet pavement, fading into the distance. I wanted their speed, their freedom, anything but this room. The boarding pass sat printed on the desk, ink fresh. The paper edge curled upward in the warm lamp glow. I touched it with one finger, skin prickling. It felt like a ticket out and a dare. My reflection in the glass beside it looked nothing like me. I slid the pass into the suitcase pocket, careful and slow. The zipper rasped again, metal against fabric. The radiator popped once, sending out a rush of heat. Sweat gathered at my temples and slid down my cheek. I shut the suitcase fully and stood back, listening hard. The room was quiet now, except the faint hum. The laptop screen dimmed and turned into a dark mirror. My own face stared back, sharp and unblinking. Beside me, The suitcase sat ready in the shadows. I realized leaving was easier than waiting for another cut. The drawer screeched when I pulled it open too far. Dust rose from the corners and stung my nose sharply. Under a dead charger and a bent pen was the old phone. Its cracked screen caught the lamp glow in jagged shards. I lifted it out slowly, like it might burn my hand. The plastic back felt greasy and cold against my palm. I pressed a button and the screen blinked weakly to life. The battery icon bled red, almost empty, gasping for charge. I plugged in the cord and it hissed against the port. The faint buzz from the outlet filled the silent room. The smell of stale paper filled the air from stacked bills. On the desk, envelopes leaned against the wall like tired soldiers. The phone vibrated once and then froze with static light. I tapped the gallery icon, finger trembling against the glass. Rows of blurry nights stared back until one picture froze me. The photo was grainy, but the truth never blurred. A bar rail gleamed under yellow light, sticky with spilled liquor. Two bodies leaned too close, faces half hidden in shadows. Her fiancé's hand was on another woman's hip. Their lips almost touched and the flash caught his guilty grin. I remember the music pounding then, bass shaking the floorboards. Beer smell mixed with cologne so sharp it made me choke. I had been standing by the jukebox, frozen in disbelief. The phone was shaking in my grip as I snapped. One quick photo, one proof I shoved deep into silence. I closed my eyes now and saw that night replay. Her fiancé's laugh rang in my ears like broken glass. The bar stool squeaked when he pulled the woman closer. Glasses clinked behind the counter, a bartender pretending not to see. My throat had gone dry and I walked out shaking. I should have told her then. My chest screamed that truth, but she was planning her wedding, glowing under new rings. The invitation sat on the fridge, pinned by a magnet. I convinced myself it was a mistake, a one-time slip. Still, the photo stayed hidden, buried like a weapon. The phone felt heavier now, as if it judged me. The cable hummed with faint current, warming the plastic shell. I zoomed in on his face, pale under bar light. The curve of his smile was smug, unshaken, practiced. It was not an accident. He was enjoying being caught. The radiator hissed and rattled behind me, pushing dry heat. Sweat prickled the back of my neck, sticky and hot. I set the phone down on the desk too hard. The crack across the screen shone bright under the lamp. The image stared back at me, daring me to act. I gripped the chair until it would dug into my fingers. The air smelled faintly metallic, sharp like old coins. I thought of Emma's robe brushing the doorframe earlier. Her tired eyes, the way her voice cracked on lies. If she saw this photo, her world would collapse. The silence in the room was broken by one ping. A new email slid across the laptop screen beside me. The subject line read, "Final seating chart." Her name was there. I looked from the glow of the laptop to the phone. The two lights merged on the wall, clashing like rivals. My chest ached as I pressed the phone screen again. I highlighted the photo, my finger hovering over share. Her contact name stared at me, lit up in white. The sound of my own breath filled the heavy air. One tap could end everything or save her. The lamp flickered once and steadied, throwing long shadows. The passport on the desk seemed to glare back at me. Was I leaving to protect myself, or running from truth? The radiator popped again like a bullet in the dark. I kept staring at the photo and couldn't look away. The boarding pass crumpled in my grip as I paced. Airport speakers cracked overhead, flight numbers echoing like metallic warnings. My backpack strap cut into my shoulder, skin damp with sweat. I tried to breathe steady, but the air reeked of burnt coffee. Then my phone lit up with a number I didn't know. It buzzed so loud against the plastic chair that heads turned. The glow painted my hand blue as I swiped fast. "Hello," I said, voice already shaking with something dark. A hiss of static filled my ear, like wind through wires. Then I heard her whisper, sharp and uneven, like she was hiding. "It's me," she said. Her words cracked like glass under pressure. Behind her, water dripped fast into a metal sink. The echo told me she was locked in somewhere small. "I'm in the bathroom," she said, "and I can't breathe." I pressed a palm to my chest, heart beating out of rhythm. The smell of grease from a food stand made me nauseous. What happened? I asked, my voice louder than I meant. Travelers around me turned, eyes curious, but I looked away. Her silence on the line was heavier than shouting. There's glass on the floor, she whispered. A door banged behind her, and she muffled the phone. I pressed my fingers into the plastic chair until it bent. Who broke it? I asked, my throat raw and dry. Her breath rasped close to the speaker, so close I felt it. Don't say his name, she said, voice low and urgent. The background hummed with fluorescent light, sharp and electric. I pictured her crouched in a corner, robe torn, mascara streaked. My boarding pass slipped from my hand and floated to the floor. I'm not safe, she whispered, and I don't know where to go. I bent to grab the pass, paper soft and damp now. The tile under my fingers felt cold through my skin. Tell me the address, I said, trying to stay steady. Someone rolled a suitcase past, wheels rattling like chains. Her sob broke through the speaker, thin and jagged as a blade. He locked the door, she said. The bathroom faucet squealed in the background, spraying water. I clenched my jaw until it ached and teeth ground. Stay hidden, I said, eyes burning. I'm coming right now. The line went dead with a click that hollowed my chest. The announcement board flickered above, letters shifting in white glow. My flight number blinked, promising escape in less than an hour. But her voice still rang in my ear, sharp and raw. I crushed the boarding pass into a ball and shoved it deep. Leaving wasn't an option anymore, not after that call. The rain hit my windshield in heavy sheets, each drop exploding loud. The wipers screeched across the glass, rubber skipping on the slick surface. Streetlights stretched into smeared streaks, gold and red across the wet asphalt. My knuckles ached from gripping the wheel too tight. Every mile forward felt too slow. Every red light unbearable. The heater blew hot air that smelled like dust and rust. My breath fogged the side window and blurred the city shapes. I cracked it open, rain spraying my sleeve cold and sharp. The phone buzzed once on the passenger seat, then went silent. I slammed my palm against the wheel, begging her to hold on. When I pulled up, I spotted her under a flickering street lamp. She sat hunched on a metal bench, lace veil torn in her fists. Her bare feet touched the wet pavement, toes red from the cold. The smell of rain mixed with exhaust from a nearby bus. For a moment, she didn't see me, like she was somewhere else. I ran over her, shoes splashing water, jeans soaking to the knees. She lifted her head and her eyes looked hollow and wide. Her lips trembled, words forming without sound at first. I crouched in front of her, the metal bench freezing my hand. Emma, I said, what the hell happened to you? She blinked slow, mascara streaks running down her cheeks like ink. Her breath came in short bursts, hot mist in the cold air. I cut you out because they made me, she said. Who's they? I asked, voice low and sharp. Her hands shook as she pressed the torn veil into my palm. Liam's mother cornered me, she said. Her voice cracked, raw like it scraped her throat. She showed me papers, debts, and a prenup. Rain pattered hard against the bench, metal humming with each hit. She said you'd ruin everything if you stayed close. I felt the fabric of my hand, wet lace clinging like skin. The street lamp buzzed above, showering us in unsteady light. You believe them, I said, throat tight, trying not to yell. She nodded, shoulders shaking under the soaked robe she still wore. I thought keeping you away would protect me, she whispered. I reached for her wrist and froze when I saw it. A dark bruise spread along the bone, shaped like a thumbprint. The sight made my stomach twist, heat flooding my chest. Who did that? I asked, voice sharp as broken glass. Her silence was worse than if she had screamed. She turned her wrist away, hiding it inside the robe sleeve. A car horn blared in the distance and faded into night. Her tears hit the pavement, mixing with the rain at her feet. He slammed the door when I asked about the papers, she said. The words fell from her mouth like shards of glass. I pressed both palms against the wet bench to steady myself. The cold metal bit into my skin, grounding me against rage. Why didn't you leave sooner? I asked, barely above a whisper. The wind shoved a newspaper across the street, pages flapping frantic. Because I thought I deserved it, she said, eyes burning. Her voice cracked on the word deserved, breaking something inside me. The rain soaked my collar until it clung heavy and cold. I stood up, heart racing, and pulled at her feet. Her veil scrap slipped from my hand and landed in a puddle. I looked at her shaking body and knew I couldn't walk away. The police station doors swung heavy and groaned on their hinges. Inside, the air smelled of wet coats and burnt coffee. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, washing everything in pale sickness. Emma's robe clung to her skin, dripping on the tile. I kept my hand on her back, guiding her forward. The front desk was scratched metal, a corner bent upward. An officer behind it typed fast. Keys clacking in bursts. His silver badge caught the light, throwing sharp gleams across the wall. He glanced up, eyes narrowing at Emma's soaked state. "We need help now," I said, voice raw from the drive. The officer's chair squeaked as he leaned closer. "What happened?" he asked, pen already hovering over a pad. Emma pressed trembling fingers to the counter, nails clicking faintly. "I can't explain here," she said, breath shuddering out in gasps. He nodded once and waved us toward a side door. The hallway smelled of disinfectant and old paint peeling. Every step echoed on the linoleum, a hollow drumbeat. We entered a small room, 2 plastic chairs and a table. The overhead bulb hummed like an insect trapped in glass. Emma sat down hard, veil scrap still crushed in her hand. I slid her phone across the table toward the officer. Its cracked screen glowed faintly, smudged with rain and fingerprints. "Listen," I said, "the voicemail is still saved." The officer pressed play, and Liam's voice filled the air. Sharp, angry, promising damage if she disobeyed him. Emma covered her ears as his threat spilled out. The chair legs screeched on the floor as she shook. The officer scribbled notes fast, ink scratching over the paper. I gripped the edge of the table, wood rough against my palm. The recording ended with silence that stung more than words. "Do you want to press charges?" the officer asked. His tone was steady, but his eyes flipped between us. Emma's breath fogged the glass of water on the table. Her voice broke. I wanted to stop. The words hung heavy, like the first cut of a blade. Another officer entered, taller, coat damp with outside rain. He carried a clipboard and set it down with a thud. The smell of his wet gloves filled the room, earthy and sharp. He pulled a chair out, the legs scraping long. "Tell us everything," he said, eyes fixed on Emma's bruise. Her sleeve slipped back, exposing the dark mark fully. The bruise bloomed deep purple, the shape of control. The officer's jaw tightened, his pen pausing midair. Emma's hand hovered over the mark, shaking as she spoke. "He slammed me into the door," she whispered, "because I asked questions." The sound of a printer whirred, faintly outside the room. A calendar curled on the wall, pages stained with coffee rings. The officer wrote faster now, lines filling the form quick. I leaned close to Emma, my shoulder against hers. Her eyes closed, but tears slid anyway, each one burning. The officer set his pen down with a hard click. "We'll take your statement tonight," he said firmly. Emma's phone buzzed again on the table, screen lighting up. The name across it made my stomach twist. It was him, calling like he already knew. The officer grabbed the phone before Emma could touch it. He slipped it into an evidence bag, plastic crinkling loud. Emma flinched at the sound, eyes darting toward the door. I rested my hand on hers, cold against cold. "We're not leaving here until you're safe," I said. The bulb above flickered once, shadows jerking across the walls. The taller officer stood, chair screeching back against the floor. He adjusted his belt, metal clinking sharp in the quiet. "We'll move on this," he said, voice low but certain. Emma stared at the table, veil scrap trembling between her fingers. The church doors groaned when I pushed them open wide. Inside, the air was thick with lilies, sweet but suffocating. Light from stained glass spilled across the aisle in broken colors. People turned in their seats, papers rustling like a restless wave. My pulse hammered loud enough to drown the organ's low hum. Emma stood at the back, veil gone, eyes red but fierce. Her dress clung damp against her skin, lace darkened by rain. The gold ring box trembled in her grip, knuckles white. Whispers cut through the crowd, sharp as knives in the quiet. She lifted her chin and stepped forward, each heel striking loud. Liam waited at the altar, suit pressed, face smug and pale. He adjusted his cufflink, the click echoing through the hush. His smile faltered when he saw her walking empty-handed. I slid into the aisle, close enough to catch her fall. Every step she took was heavier than the last. The priest shifted, book in his hands, voice unsure. The microphone buzzed, picking up every breath and whisper. Emma stopped mid-aisle, her hands trembling at her sides. "I am not marrying you," she said, voice slicing clear. The words dropped heavy, and the church gasped as one. Liam's face drained white under the colored glass light. He took one step forward, hand rising in command. "You don't mean this," he said, teeth grinding hard. His voice cracked against the speakers, hollow and ugly. Emma didn't move, her shoulders locked like stone. Guests murmured, programs crinkling between damp fingers. A baby cried somewhere near the back. Sound shrill. I gripped the aisle rail, would rough under my palm. 2 officers stepped from the side doors, shoes echoing sharp. Their cuffs gleamed silver in the fractured glow. Liam froze, eyes darting between Emma and the uniforms. One officer raised a hand. "We need to speak now." The congregation erupted, gasps breaking into voices overlapping. Emma's veil scrap slipped from her fingers onto the tiles. The sound of it hitting stone was soft, almost tender. Liam tried to laugh, but it came out broken and thin. "Who called them?" he asked, voice trembling into rage. The taller officer moved fast, belt jingling, hand gripping his arm. Cuffs snapped shut with metallic bite that silenced everything. The image of his pale wristband burned into me. The priest lowered the book, eyes wide, mouth still. Emma's chest heaved, her breath fogging in the church's chill. I stepped closer and touched her elbow, grounding her weight. She looked at me, eyes wet, but steady for once. Together we watched them drag him down the aisle, past whispers. The church bells began to ring, late, unplanned, almost mocking. Their hollow sound filled the rafters and rattled the glass. Guests pressed close to the pews, clutching programs like shields. Emma knelt and picked up the fallen veil scrap. Her hand shook, but her face was finally free. Gravel crunched under my shoes as we stepped outside. The cold air slapped my face, sharp and wet with rain. Emma's dress clung heavy against her legs, lace streaked with mud. The black car idled by the curb, headlights casting hard beams. Behind us, voices still rose inside the church like angry ghosts. My mother rushed forward, perfume mixing with damp air. She wrapped him in her arms, tissue pressed hard to her cheek. The fabric of her coat scratched against my sleeve as I held her steady. My father stood by the car door, breathing like a bull. His hands clenched the roof, so tight the metal popped. Across the street, Liam's mother screamed near the iron gate. Her pearls bounced against her neck as she shook her purse. Rain streaked her makeup, turning it into black rivers down her skin. Her voice tore through the night, words I couldn't even process. The officers shoved Liam into a cruiser, siren lights painting everything red. Emma leaned against me, her body trembling under the street lamp glow. Her fingers dug into my sleeve, desperate and unsteady. "I can't go back there," she said, voice breaking thin. The car door handle was slick under my wet hand. I pulled it open and guided her inside before she collapsed. The leather seat smelled of damp wool and faint gasoline. She slid down until her head hit the cold window. Her veil scrap dangled from her fist, soaked and torn. I climbed in beside her, slamming the door against the rain. Outside, the cruiser pulled away, dragging a shadow down the block. My father started the engine, the low growl filling the silence. Wipers thudded across the windshield, flinging water like glass shards. My mother turned in the front seat, eyes sharp and wet. "You're safe now," she whispered, though her hand shook on her lap. Emma's gaze stayed fixed on the falling rain, unblinking, unreadable. Streetlights smeared past, golden streaks across the wet side windows. My chest still pounded with the echo of the church bells. I touched Emma's wrist gently, skin cold and fragile. Her bruise caught the dim light, dark against pale skin. She didn't flinch this time, but her fingers tightened on the veil. "Do you regret it?" I asked softly. Her head turned, eyes hollow but steady on me. "I regret waiting this long," she said, voice raw. The heater hummed louder, pumping out a metallic warmth. I looked at her, and for the first time, believed her. Behind us, sirens faded, swallowed by the wet night. Ahead, the road stretched empty, slick black under white lamps. Emma leaned against me, her breath fogging the glass. I let the silence hold us, heavy but alive. The rain kept falling, washing everything but the memory.